I'm Erica. This is Doug. We are two of the four co-hosts of The D Word. The D Word has been around for 23 years. It started as an online forum, continues to be an online forum with a lot of different topics, all things of interest to documentary professionals. And I will turn it back over to Doug.
I see by the number of participants, 217, there's a little bit of interest in PBS. And really thrilled to have our two guests with us today, Keith Ochwat and Linda Midgett. In case you didn't see the email with their very brief bios, like a sentence or two, I'll just refer to it once again so you know. But Keith is a documentary filmmaker, distribution strategist, and educator. And as many of you know, founder of Show&Tell, which helps filmmakers connect with their audience and make money through coaching and its virtual screening platform. And it is awesome. It's really, I think, you know, the webinars that you've been doing, Keith, have been really invaluable. And, you know, there's some done to subscribers, but many of them are done as free webinars for people who are not subscribers. I couldn't recommend it more highly. So we're really grateful to have you here. And Linda is an Emmy-Award winning indie filmmaker and TV producer. Her stuff is shown on PBS, the History Channel, Discovery, NBC-Universal, you name it. And she's currently executive producer of Louisiana Public Broadcasting, which means what, that you oversee the productions, all the productions that come out of there, Linda?
Yeah, I oversee all of the original productions that we do here at LPB, Louisiana Public Broadcasting. So that includes news, documentaries, you know, specials, etc.
Great. Okay. I'm going to ask, I mean, a lot of this will be sort of presentational on your part. I know you have some stuff prepared. But I kind of want to frame the discussion from the perspective of, I think, many of the people attending here today, which is, you know, they're partway through a feature-length documentary, probably shot, they may be in some stage of production, they don't have enough money. They think it's a subject matter that might be a fit for PBS. And, you know, they're just looking for, you know, how do we even approach PBS? How does it work? Where do I even begin? I mean, I remember back over 30 years ago when I was making my first film, and in that position, the heck with Hollywood, somebody got me in touch with Peter McGee, who's the executive producer at WGBH, a PBS station in Boston. I went up there, showed him an 85-minute rough cut. He didn't laugh at any of the moments I thought were like delightfully funny. But he at the end said, you know, at 57 minutes, this would be a gem, and proceeded to, I think, pitch it to national PBS, or maybe it was CPB, Corporation for Public Broadcasting. And I got all of $75,000, and then later another 50 when I couldn't make it for 75,000. But I don't think that happens anymore. So, you know, tell me how lucky I was to be, you know, to have that. And if I were in the same position today, what would I do? This could not happen, right? Either Keith or Linda, why don't you like tell us where would I go if I was dreaming of PBS today?
Linda, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I will say, I mean, I've been that independent filmmaker, also doing a film with no money. So I am deeply sympathetic to all of you who are in that place. I think a lot of us end up doing projects because we care deeply about the subjects. And, it's become increasingly difficult to monetize documentary films. It's just really, really hard. It's hard with streaming services. When I started filming Same God in 2015, I think around that time, independent documentaries at Sundance were getting an automatic offer of, I think it was $75,000, Doug. And so that tells you that it hasn't kept pace with inflation over the years. But, there were streaming services were picking them up. And by the time I finished filming in 2018 and the film was ready, that had completely dried up. I think that year Netflix commissioned maybe 2 films that entire year from all the film festivals. So, the distribution model has just changed rapidly. And I don't, for my opinion, not in the favor of filmmakers. And my personal experience with Same God is that PBS was really a lifesaver for the film. I will tell you, Keith and I connected. Keith was the consultant that I used for the film, and he was frankly brilliant and did just a wonderful job of helping me reimagine how to market and distribute a film, and much more guerrilla style and much less pie in the sky, like, oh, HBO is going to come pick it up for $1 million and that's how I'm going to make all my money back. So, when I finished my film, my editor had been working for free basically for the better part of a year. And I owed a lot of money on the production. I had not paid myself. There are a lot of people who were working for free, and I needed to find the funds to really just pay off that, to get out of the red and into the black, and then get some money for marketing and distribution and everything else that needed to happen. And Nita, as a distributor for PBS, ended up being the perfect solution. And that was a suggestion that came from Keith. So Keith, maybe I'm teeing you up. I don't want to do all the talking, but yeah.
Well, I really appreciate the kind words, Linda. Working with you was such a wonderful experience because your film was so important. It was so beautifully told. The story of Dr. Larisha Hawkins and her open heart that led to a really difficult time in her career, and that candid way and heartfelt way that Linda followed the story was amazing, and fits into these broader topics that are happening in the zeitgeist right now around faith and inclusivity and otherizing, and that, honestly, big picture, the biggest of pictures, I think there's a lot of opportunity for documentary filmmakers right now. And I think that gone are the days, though. And the truth is, I haven't been around that long. I'm just about 40 years old, but I grew up as a filmmaker for 12 years. I was a full-time documentary filmmaker. I did 3 PBS docs, and I've for the first 8 years of my career followed the mythology that I had to get to Sundance. I had to try to make a deal. I had to get a distributor. I almost took, honestly, career-ending distribution deals. And, I won't say the companies some of them are out of business now, thankfully, but some are still in business screwing filmmakers. And, the truth is that when I didn't get into documentary to make the most money I could. I did get into documentary to tell important stories and to make a career as a filmmaker, and hopefully one day buy a house or, do some modest things that I just, would like to do, living in this crazy world. And but I cared a lot about the stories I told and understanding how they fit into the zeitgeist, into the moment in time that we all share now. And that's something that I love doing with my work with Show and Tell. That's something I loved doing with Linda, which was help her and help filmmakers take something that we work so hard for and work for years to do, and that's, get to picture lock on a film and to have our films nudge the world in the right direction. And I've just found that PBS and public television in general is just a huge opportunity, and I think one of the best opportunities, and definitely for television, the best opportunity for independent documentary filmmakers like all of us. But also there's so many other opportunities out there that are related to things that I didn't learn about when I was taking film classes, when I was talking with other filmmakers, whether it was at Spotlight on Documentary or other opportunities where I could gather and we could share information about how we were trying to navigate this crazy world. And no one was talking about conferences. No one was talking about partnerships in the ways that were would eventually open my eyes and open so many doors for me for my documentary. I almost, after my premiere for my last film, Age of Champions, about the Senior Olympics, I almost took a $75,000 all rights deal because I didn't have any better options, and I was scared. And luckily, I started working with someone who opened my eyes to this world, Peter Broderick. Many of you will know Peter. He's just incredible. I call him the Oracle of distribution, and he, challenged me to think differently and to take a risk and not take that crappy deal. And so, I ended up really focusing on understanding how my film fit into bigger conversations, how I could work with allies like the AARP. I could go to conferences in the senior living world and the kinesiology world and gerontology world, places I didn't even really ever think of as places for film. But they were really great opportunities. And that's why I'm excited to talk about the public television system today with the D-Word community here, and with Linda, because I think PBS and a national broadcast, and as part of that, the underwriting that you can sell is a really powerful tool for us to not only make some money, but also build relationships. When we are selling underwriting, we're not just cashing a check, we're also starting a relationship. And I think if you can fan the flames of that relationship and grow it, you can do really special things and have what I think is probably a big motivation for all of you making documentaries. Hopefully your film can make the world slightly better, whether it's through laughter or empathy or just very unknown information. And so it's really, I'm excited to be here today to pull back the curtain a bit. Doug, I see that you wanted to say something.
Well, first of all, your colleague Nadia from Show&Tell is here, and it would be good if she could put some information about Show&Tell in the chat so that we can really focus on PBS here today. Why don't we have lots of members who are from all over the world here on these Zooms outside of the US, and let's just backtrack a little bit. And for those who don't know, can you explain what PBS actually is, and then maybe how some of these other, I don't know, affiliate groups or things like NITA fit in? It can be very confusing. It's not like German television, but it's almost a rival to German television. The breakdown of the rabbit hole you can go down trying to figure it out.
I wonder, Linda, we had a little play-by-play we wanted to do, but I wonder if I should just do my quick primer on how...
Sure, yeah, why don't you do that?
Yeah,
yes.
I'll do the primer. It'll take 5 minutes. It'll be the only slides we'll show today because we want today to be a conversation. But to Doug's point, like the D-Word is a global community, and many of you aren't based in the United States, but you should all know that you do have opportunities in public television, no matter where you're based in the world. And talking to the vice president of NITA, who's one of the main gatekeepers of the public television system, Angie Simmons. By the way, I'm hosting a webinar with her next Thursday, the 16th. Nadia will put a link in the chat right now to RSVP. It's a free webinar to go deeper on what we're discussing now. But basically, I asked her, like, can filmmakers from around the world, like foreign filmmakers, are there any restrictions on them having a national broadcast? And the answer is no, unless they have received public funding from the government of those of the country that you reside in, and if there is any complication related to America's relationship with them. I mean, I don't, I don't know. I mean, so you can imagine, unfortunately, there are a handful of countries, maybe not more than a handful, that we have complicated relationships with. So if you've received public funding from, you can imagine, then there might be complications. But the truth is, don't assume your film isn't a good fit for PBS. Don't assume that your film is not going to get to PBS. So many filmmakers I work with that I advise to get to the public television system who do secure a national broadcast don't think they're like, oh, my film's not a good fit for that, or I can't do. Just try, just apply. It's not that hard to do. Leaders like Linda are working within the public television system, actively building relationships. So I think just, let's assume your film is a good fit, and try and put your hat in the ring, because it is a great opportunity. And I'll do a quick 5-minute breakdown of what it means to secure a broadcast and secure sponsors. Now, this is going to be really fast. So as I mentioned, next week I'll go a little slower and talk a little more about it. But just want to pull back the curtain on those two ideas: securing a broadcast and what it means to have an underwriter. So the public broadcasting service, really the proper way to refer to what we're all talking about today, is actually the public television system. And the public television system and PBS basically are going to be helpful for audience, for partnerships, for revenue. Essentially, the main blocks in lengths of your films, they are open to doing shorts, 26 minutes, 46 seconds. If your film is closer to an hour, 56, 46, and then 90 minutes. Linda actually had a feature and chose to do her full feature through NIDA, and 86-46 is the typical length. There's a little asterisk to that. It can be a little longer depending if you go with NIDA or PBS Plus or APT. I'll talk about that in a minute. And then, NIDA has told me directly that they're interested in shorts and potentially if you have a film that's shorter than 30 minutes, maybe working with other short producers, combining, especially if they're about a similar topic. There are ways, and there's also interstitial time. Linda might know more about this than I do, but if you have a short, there may be opportunities in the public television system. Now, I always refer to the public television system as an alphabet soup. Of course, there's PBS, but there's NIDA, which I've referred to several times. And NIDA is basically a distributor to the public television stations across the United States. There are over 300 public television stations. They all typically set their own schedules. There are statewide networks, like Linda is the executive producer of in Louisiana. But NIDA essentially will send your film to, and sends up, hundreds of other films to stations around the country. And so there's other services though. There's APT, American Public Television. There's PBS Plus. And I've worked with all three. They're all different. There's ITVS. ITVS is fantastic, and they provide funding with their open call, but they also run something called Independent Lens, which is a very prestigious and wonderful series for documentary. There's also POV that Erica mentioned earlier, which is a fantastic documentary series. There's the World Channel as well. So there's a lot of different ways you can get onto the public television system. There isn't just one way, which is fantastic, because there's only one way to get to Sundance. There's only one way to make a deal with HBO. With the public television system, you have opportunities to secure broadcasts that are more multifaceted. You can apply directly, whether it's with Independent Lens or POV, the more prestigious and competitive, or with NIDA or APT. There are ways that you can apply directly. I'll be honest, NIDA is my go-to because I've just had good experiences with them. It's who I advise filmmakers go to, and I find them to be really filmmaker friendly. But APT and PBS Plus are also great options as well if you can't get broadcast through Independent Lens or POV. Couple tips. Don't submit a work in progress. Get your film further along. Make a good first impression. It's just like you don't want to submit your work in progress to a festival programmer. But the good news is that if you have a 82-minute version, at least of your final, if your picture locked version of your film is 82 minutes, you don't have to cut a 56-minute version to apply to PBS, to NIDA in particular. I know for certain. Same with APT. You can just submit your film as it is, and if they like it, you can let them know that you're open to cutting it down. And if you're accepted, then you can go through that horrible process of cutting down your film. Okay, securing underwriters. It is it's the most well-kept secret in fundraising for filmmakers. It is just so many filmmakers secure a broadcast and then they just do their broadcast and they don't do underwriting. You are leaving money on the table. And so if there's one mission I have these days, is telling you all about underwriting and that you can do it. It's a form of partnership. It's about building a relationship. It's not some weird transaction that's really overly complicated. It's all about creating a relationship with a company or a philanthropy or even a high net worth individual, a rich person who cares about your film, who would like to make your national broadcast happen. I actually advise filmmakers to not just say, hey, do you want to be a sponsor for my PBS broadcast? I say, hey, I have an opportunity for a national public television broadcast, and can you help make it happen? If you can help make it happen, I can recognize you as part of my film. This program is brought to you by so-and-so or this company or this person. They don't generally underwriting doesn't typically, you don't typically recognize individuals, but foundations, companies, and others. And so it's a form of relationship. The other thing too is PBS, and I know Linda is going to talk about this too, is one of the most trusted brands in television, and it's appealing to sponsors. Another lovely thing about underwriting is the underwriters pay you directly. The money doesn't go through the public television system. It goes to you and you keep 100%. Underwriting is a fancy word for, if you've ever watched public television, if you ever watched, turn on your local station, this program is brought to you by Boeing. It was brought to you by the Ford Foundation. It was brought to you by, whoever. And they, it's essentially a short commercial. Generally, depending on if you go with PBS Plus or NIDA or APT, you can sell about a little less than a minute of your time. You can break it up into increments. The longest increment I have ever been a part of is 15 seconds. You can sell a 30-second, but it's complicated. We're not going to talk about that. Generally, I recommend breaking up that about minute into 15-second, 10-second, 5-second increments, and you can sell those. You can price those at whatever you want. There are some limits. You can't just price it at $10. But so there are some limits. PBS has a lot of resources, including something called the Red Book. I've been in communication with PBS about some other guidelines that they're preparing. They even have an online course. I can share those resources as well, so that you can understand the rules. The last thing I'll say about underwriting is that it plays at the beginning and it repeats at the end. It's like a mirror image. So you don't get to have different ads in the beginning and different underwriting messages at the beginning and different messages at the end. It plays at the top and bottom with no commercial break, and you set the price. So that's just my lightning fast primer on how the public television system works. Linda, I wanted to pass it to you and talk for a second about that idea of the trust factor that PBS has, the value that the public television offers, and something you and I talked about was as a leader with Louisiana Public Broadcasting, how you're building relationships with independent filmmakers. Can you talk about that?
Sure. So studies have shown every year repeatedly that PBS is the number one most trusted media source in the country. And that's especially important right now where we're in such a polarized time. And news has been, much of it is propaganda really at this point. And so PBS holds a very unique position in the country. It's unique because it's free. And I think that's something that's important for everyone to, I think we all know that intuitively, but it's worth saying. It is a free media channel that people in every part of the country typically get. And so PBS has very high editorial standards. It is not a good place to take your film if you haven't done your due diligence as journalism, if it's a true documentary and there's, real journalism involved. So the standards are high. And when it comes to underwriting, the standards are high because they have to be very careful that money is vetted. They will ask you who funded it, who gave it to you. You have to tell them. They have rules about who can be listed and who can't. And I won't get into that because it's a little too detailed for today's overview. But all of that information is in their red book. And I see a link to that in the chat. And you're going to want to look at that carefully. But that trust is a huge asset when you go and look to secure underwriting for your film. So because as you offer your film through the system, in my case, Thank God was picked up by NIDA. So they accepted it. And I was able to secure underwriting largely from wealthy individuals who really believed in the topic of the film. They wanted to spread the word about this. The story was important to them. And I was able to identify sort of a venue that I made the film available for free. They watched it. I publicly said, I need support for this. I have a PBS broadcast coming up and offering, and I need underwriting for that. And that is how I raised several $100,000. And it paid back my production cost, which was huge. Like I cried, like one couple, I literally started crying when they told me that they were willing to support it because it had been years of work with really, just having to work so hard for that support. And they just became tremendous friends and supporters of the film moving forward. So I kind of want to clarify a couple of things, and then I'll talk about the relationship thing, Keith. But I just want to make sure everyone understands this, because I know from my side as an independent filmmaker, the PBS system is confusing, and I also know on this side it's still confusing. But I know more now than I did before I joined LPB. But the way that like NIDA and AP work, they're a distributor in the sense that they are offering to the stations around the country. It's almost like a catalog that they can choose from to supplement their programming. So with all of the stations that are in the country, they have, if they are a PBS affiliate, then they pay a fee to PBS and they're given content from PBS, and it's things like Sanditon and Antiques Roadshow and things like that. And a lot of that content is considered common carriage. So every single station carries that same content. Then a lot of stations, but not all of them, and it's going to vary depending on what part of the country you're in and who your affiliate is, a lot of stations then produce their own original content. So like here in Louisiana, I oversee our original content that we produce. Then they further supplement that by pulling this additional content from places like NIDA and APTV, et cetera. So I just want to make sure that that's really clear in your mind, sort of how you fit into this. It's almost like a little pie, like if you're, the pie chart of how much content, that's where your film would be coming in and being offered to them to pick up.
Linda, if I could ask, when you say it's offered to, let's say you have a program or there's a program you're overseeing, how do you present it to the larger PBS? Can you advocate for certain films?
Yes, you actually you need to hire, part of your fundraising is to hire a station relations manager. And basically it's basically a PR person who understands the PBS affiliate, who has those relationships. who can call up the programmer at LPB and say, hey, Jason, I've got a great film. I really think you need to check this out and consider programming it on your station. So that station relations manager, that's part of, sometimes it's, I don't know, Keith, it's like maybe a ballpark of $7 to $10 to $15,000, whatever it is, it's somewhere in that range. That is part of the underwriting that you need to bring up. And it's PR within PBS. And they have sort of various ways that they do that do that. They send out postcards and make a lot of phone calls. It's a lot of personal relationships within that.
So when it comes to the alphabet soup slide I shared earlier, when you go with POV or independent lens, and which are, they're the gold standard when it comes to securing a national broadcast. They're the most competitive. They come typically acquisition to those, they're called strands, come with an acquisition fee, which is very nice. And the other advantage is they handle the station relations. They have such good, I don't want to use too much PBS speak, it's a total separate language, but they have what's called good carriage, in that they're popular shows, independent lens and POV, station programmers who set schedules know about it. They have it on their regular schedule. So you don't have to hire the person Linda just mentioned, the station relations consultant. Station relations can be confusing, but the simple way to think about it is when you get a broadcast, it's really a feed into from NIDA or APT or PBS Plus. It gets sent via satellite to the 300 or so stations. Those stations have to download it onto their system, and then they have to put it on their schedule. And each station programmer, for the most part, has pretty good autonomy about how they set their schedules. So it's sort of like, when a tree falls and no one's there to hear the sound. Does it? Well, whatever. I don't remember the metaphor. The saying, the colloquialism. It's like you're getting sent out there. You have your national feed, but to actually get broadcast and have eyeballs on your film, you need to have people set your film into their schedule. And so a station relations person is really important, and it's an important investment. There are APT, I don't know about PBS Plus, APT, and I know NIDA offer services where you can pay a little extra and they'll do some extra promotion of your film if you don't have $7,000 to $10,000. And it's pretty inexpensive. But that's why underwriting is so important. And you might be thinking, wait, hold on, step back. Are you saying if I go this crazy road to secure a broadcast, I have to pay, a nominal fee to NIDA or APT, $500 or so, and then I also have to hire someone for thousands of dollars? The answer is you don't have to, but not many people are going to see your film. So with my first film, I did not hire someone because I was on a true shoestring budget. I went through NIDA for my first film about nomadic reindeer herders in Mongolia, and I did my own station relations, and it was a ton of work. I basically had to track down the programmer contact info, email, and phone number I just did the top, I think, 30 station markets, and I got some broadcasts, but it was a lot of work. It's basically calling and emailing and sending postcards and DVD screeners and things like that. But so you don't have to hire someone, but that's why underwriting is really important. I want to make it clear too that you don't have to pay your station relations person immediately. You can typically, the way they work is you hire them, they choose to work with you, and then you go out to find underwriters, and then you raise the money you need to hire someone fantastic. So, I mean, Linda, in your case, when you hired Kristen Fellows, did you have to pay her before you got your underwriters, or at least one of your underwriters, on board?
It has been long enough that I'm not positive, but I know I did not have to pay her all of it up front. So, I mean, she was paid as she went along. And so it gave some flexibility in being able to raise that money as I went along. I want to jump in because I'm seeing some confusion in the chat. Just to be clear, PBS does not or if you get picked up by NETA or APTV, they do not pay you an acquisition fee. So this is not the same as having your film acquired. And it's obviously not a commission. They're not paying you to do it. When they accept your film, what you have is that it is available then to anyone around the country. And so that's where the underwriting, if you've raised all your money and maybe it doesn't matter, then, you've gotten your distribution to some extent, and that may be all that you want. But if you are like a lot of us and really need the money, that's where the underwriting, you've secured your broadcast and you can go to your potential sponsor and say, hey, my film is going to be made available around the country, and I need your support in order to do this. So yeah.
Linda and Keith, we all know it can take months and months and months to secure underwriting. At what point do you want to go out and start looking for underwriting, maybe even before you have a partner station on board? I mean, do you just say, I'm hoping to get to PBS? Should we be seeking letters of interest perhaps from a PBS station, or how would you go about getting underwriting before you're even on board with a PBS presenting station?
I love starting to work with filmmakers when they are still in production and in post, because I recommend you start talking about underwriting long before you're at picture lock, because it does, as you point out, Doug, it does take, I don't want to belittle how much work it takes to find an underwriter. If you've ever done it, it's a lot of work. You can work smart. Linda did something really smart. She went to a festival that was really linked to her target audience, and she gave a presentation of her, it's just not a conference, but kind of like a conference. It's a gathering of people in her target audience, and she gave a presentation. She had an opportunity, and she shared the opportunity to have her broadcast and the opportunity to support her broadcast nationally. And she was able to connect with some of those people that she mentioned, who became fantastic supporters. So, underwriting is a lot of work, and it takes time. And like I said, underwriting, don't feel intimidated by the word. Just think of it as it's a relationship. It's a partnership. I recommend filmmakers early on start building relationships with influencers in their target audience area. And that can be a nonprofit organization. It could be a philanthropy. It could be a well-known author. Doors start to open when people know about the film you're working on. And don't think that you have to have your locked film in order to start building those relationships. You can do so much with just a simple pitch deck or your trailer or a teaser. And so, Doug, what I recommend filmmakers do is start building relationships and awareness. Maybe that's another way to look at it too, is just building awareness for your film in your target audience area, especially those who may have some resources who could help promote your film down the road. And what I always like to say is, like, I intend, and for filmmakers, like, I'm 2 years from knowing if PBS really wants to broadcast my film, if NETA wants it. I just say, be honest with your partners, with the people you're building relationships, that you intend to have a national broadcast, that it is your plan to. And if you do secure that national broadcast, that you could recognize them as part of that if they want to become, an underwriter, if they want to support the film and getting the film out to millions of people around the country.
With St. God, I am sorry to jump in, Keith,
No,
but I with my pitch deck, as I was, constantly fundraising, I, from the very early on, said my intention is to try and get it on PBS. Didn't promise it because it wasn't promised, but that this is what I'm aiming for. And it helped on the pitch deck before I ever secured the actual, pickup by NETA.
One thing too, Doug, because there is confusion. Underwriting, it's like this is the first time you're hearing about it. I went through it so fast that your head is spinning. You're probably frustrated, but we have a lot of resources around this. Next week, I'm going to be talking about it more. And then my teammate Nadia, I should have thought to share this earlier. I have a free mini course about PBS and underwriting. It's self-directed, so you can watch a few videos to understand it a little better, have a little time with it. So Nadia is going to share that as well. It is one of my highest purposes to educate all of you about the importance of the public television system in your distribution plans, and also PBS. And I'll make it clear, I have no relationship with them. I'm not getting paid by them. I'm not like on their payroll in any way. It's just, I'm an advocate for independent filmmakers. And as independent filmmakers, this is just a great resource for all of you.